Hey guys, and welcome to my new YouTube channel. My name is Nate, and I'm gonna show you how I edit this picture live without really any plans or pictures in mind. Just gonna go through what I do usually, and we'll see what the result will be. So let's begin with the camera raw feature. Let's put it in fit and view, and I want to lower and higher the temperature a bit to see what I like most. There is really no wrong and right here. Just do what you think looks best. One bit of greens here, like so. Bump up the exposure a bit. Now I want to add quite a lot of contrast here so the photo will really pop out of the screen. By the way, English is not my native language, so sorry for any weird accents or mistakes, but that's okay. Let's add a tiny bit of highlights, lower the shadows. I want to make like a separation between the foreground, between my model, and between the background. Now, as you can see, this was also shot through a window with a 35 millimeters on an APS-C sensor and my Nikon D5100. And so this is like 85 millimeters equivalent, somewhere around there. Now I see that when I bump up the whites, the reflections on the window become stronger, and this I really like it, and I want to keep it. About the blacks, I just want to lower them a bit. Let's bump the exposure a little bit again. Add some clarity, but really not a lot. About plus 10 I think is good. Now another thing that I like to do is really add quite a bit of vibrance and lower the saturations tiny bit. I think minus 20 works good. Okay, so this is it. This is the first settings with temperature, exposure, contrast, and such. Now let's go to the tone curve, and this is something that I really like. Sometimes I do it within the camera raw features. Sometimes I just add layers of tone curve inside Photoshop when I edit the photo. Let's see what we can do here. Something that I love doing is crushing the blacks and doing something like this. Now, just want to make it look good. I don't want to crush them too much. I don't want anything to be too bright. Let's see what it looked like with linear. Let's see the lightest curve. Oh, I like this. This is like a preset that I did quite a while ago. Like this. Just curve the blacks a tiny bit. And let's see again linear. And by S-curve, what I call it. Just a name so I can remember exactly what it is. Okay, so the output on the black point is 9. This, I just want to lower it a tiny bit, and on the highlights, I want to take it up just a tiny bit. Okay, so everything looks okay, just adds a little bit of contrast into the photo between the highlights and the shadows. And of course, as I said, I crushed the shadows just a tiny bit. Sharpening, I don't really like to sharpen this early, so I'm just gonna keep it on 0. Luminance, not today, well maybe later. Colors is something that I really play with a lot. Let's play with the saturation to figure out where are the colors. Okay, so I'm gonna add a little bit of reds, not too much because then crush them and they look really bad here. So I'm gonna go to default and add just a little bit till I see reds popping up here. Oranges usually is the lightning and skin tones. So let's do it like this. Let's go to the hue, play with the hue. And then play with the saturation. So I got when I do the reds, I look at the skin tones here and the reds here, the red line here. When I play with the oranges, I really focus mostly on the light, and I see that there's like a spot here that the oranges are really strong, so I look here and there and adjust it so nothing looks bad. Yellows, let's see what the yellows are. Most of the yellows are in this area. I don't want them to be green, I want them to be like a little bit orange. Let's see where the greens are. Don't really have greens besides this piece of light here. Let's leave it at that. Now aquas is the air. I want it to be really aquaish, so I'm gonna do something like this. Just till it looks good. Yeah, I think so. This would be great. This is the shirt, parts of the reflection. Now I want the shirt to be pinkish. Okay, but then I crush the aquas over here. So what I'm going to do is add some more blues into the aquas. Take some and take the blues and move it towards the blue slider. Like so. I think it looks okay. This spot we're gonna fix later in Photoshop itself. Now saturation is the fun part. Usually what I do, let's leave the reds here. Usually what I do, I look at all the places where the colors look bad and I just lower them. For example, like this in the face with like a spot there. I wanna desaturate the hair a little bit. I'm gonna add the aquas and I'm gonna take the blues away. Desaturate the greens because we don't really have any greens. Let's look at the yellows. Oranges is the main one. Yeah, desaturate the oranges for sure, tiny bit. And should I add some yellows or take away some? I'm gonna take away the yellows a bit. And reds, desaturate them a tiny bit again. Luminance. Let's add to the oranges. Let's add to the reds. Yellows for sure. I think. Yeah, sure yellows. We're gonna add some luminance. Greens, yeah. Add to the aquas. Yes, add to the blues. Maybe take away from the aquas. Yeah, take away from the aquas and add to the blues. Something like this. Let's see. Yeah, well, adding luminance to the purples also adds like the breaking color here, fixes the breaking color here. And adding some luminance to the magentas is a good idea also. Split toning. Let's see what we can do with split toning. The highlights are for sure yellowish, orangish, so add some there. About 15 I think. Now the shadows, I want them to be somewhere between blue and aqua. More blue. This. Let's do that and play with the balance. Maybe. Yes, I think it looks good for now. Distortion is not interesting. Grain not interesting. Camera. Let's try camera standard. Yes, looks way better. Now we can go back to the colors and give some saturation to the oranges, to the reds, yellows. This. Bring back some to the blues and the aquas. Okay. Now my biggest problem now is with the skin tones. They look not so realistic, and I really want to fix it. So I'm gonna bring back the reds. Let's play with the magentas. Magentas do nothing. Okay, so I'm gonna fix this later. Okay, let's open image. Wait a bit, yes, image is open. Duplicate it once and open a new layer. Now, first thing I want to do is just fix the skin tones, and I'm gonna do this by taking the brush tool, really soft, tiny bigger, even bigger, okay, and lowering the flow on the brush to about between 7 and 10%, taking the color of the skin that I want to duplicate, and just start painting over. Now this is gonna look not so good. I'm gonna add some highlights, add some shadows, highlights, just do it natural. Then put the blending mode in color. Yeah, it's really not a big difference, but this area right now is pretty much gray, and we've added some color now. Okay, now what I'm gonna do next is open new layer, and I'm gonna take the same color but a bit brighter and more vibrant, and I'm gonna do the same basically. I'm gonna take the highlighted areas and paint over them. Okay, so now I'm gonna take it a bit darker, new layer, paint over the darker areas. I want it to look realistic. And I'm gonna put both of these layers into color mode, and we'll see what we have now. Let's move those two. Okay, so we've added now a lot of color into the photo, even without this layer that adds a tiny bit of color. Now we've added a lot of color to the photo, and the skin tones look more real natural. Now what I want to do is take those layers, combine them, put them again into color mode, blending mode, take the eraser now, and erase the color leaks on the hair. Okay, because we have some color that's going over here, and from here also, like so. Wonderful. Okay, so let's look at the image and see what we can do next. Let's call this group face color. Okay, wonderful. Now I think that what we need to do now is to do a bit of dodging and burning, which is a fun thing to do to really bump up the shadows and the highlights. Now there are two ways you can do it. You can use the dodge tool and the burn tool, which are here, or you can do it with the just black and white and simple clean layer. Okay, so I'm gonna try this with the brush tool. Again, around 7% opacity, but I'm gonna use the black color now, simple black, and I'm just gonna go over those areas that I want dark. So don't worry about not keeping with the lines, because you can always fix it and just erase. So okay, and it's gonna look like really dark now, but we're gonna play with the layers, and it's gonna look okay. Let's do the shirt and the face, the head separately. Let's see what we can do here. Let's put it on overlay. Okay. 40% opacity. Yep, I think that looks good. We brought out a bit of the face. We've made like a separation on the hairline here. separation between the face and the hair, separation between this piece of hair and this one, and some shadows on the bottom and here inside. Let's add some here. Wonderful. Okay, so I like it so far. Now let's add some highlights. First, let's call this layer shadows. Shadows, add new layer, highlights, add. Now what we're gonna do is take the white brush, same thing, opacity, about 7%, and just paint over light. Okay, wonderful. Now this is just the beginning. We're gonna do a lot more soon when we get in really close into the face. That's the cheekbone there. And let's try overlay. Does it do anything? Yes, it does. Let's try soft light. It will be softer. I think soft light even looks better than overlay. But let's do overlay again, just to make sure. Around 35 opacity. And you know, I think overlay really works well. So that's it for now. Let's get closer into the face. Face shadows. And now what I'm gonna do here is take again the black brush and play with the shadows, meaning even I want like 5% opacity, and just paint over the lips and the shadows on the face several times. Take a bigger brush, do this, like so. Paint over the draw. Okay, now it looks like a really bad extreme edit, but remember that we're lowering the opacity and we're putting different blending modes. So let's do overlay for a second, and 50%, 37% opacity. Let's try this. This looks a bit too much. Let's do 25% opacity. Looks wonderful in my opinion. And we do again the same thing with the highlights. White brush, layer number 6 changes to face highlights. Highlights. Oh, wonderful. White brush. And this time is gonna be like really more subtle than the hair, for example. We don't paint over everything. And with a small brush, I'm gonna give it like more dimension, I think it's called. Don't worry about not keeping with the lines. Now my model had like a full piercing, so I want it to be very, very light so it will be seen. So I'm gonna do this. So okay, make the brush bigger. So a bit in the cheekbone. And overlay. Let's see if we made any difference. Yes, we have. And opacity somewhere around 50, I think would be good. Yes, 50 is wonderful. Now we've made plenty of changes. Let's group this and call it face highlights and shadows. Okay, let's see the difference now. This is what it looked before, this is what it looks now. We have a lot more contrast, we have more defined, I think, jaw. And in my opinion, it already looks a bit better. And I'm a person that likes to edit really intensively in my photographs. And next thing I want to do is try and bring out this eye. It's going to be really hard because the eye is hidden behind this reflection on the glass. But what I'm going to do is basically the same technique. Make like a white circle here. And try screen. Nope, I didn't. No. Overlay. Yes, I think overlay might work. But the eye is going to be very, very blue. And lower the opacity. I think she has green eyes. Let's try. Let's try to make her eye green again. Okay. Yep, I think that works. Let's do green now. Now let's keep it bluish. 25% opacity, and it looks green. Now next thing we're going to do, let's play around with the curves. Let's play around with the curves a little bit. I just want to give this photograph this really unreal and moody look, but I want to keep it as a good photograph. I don't want to just burn it. Let's see what we've done. That's a nice change in my opinion. The darks, the blacks have become a bit gray, and I really, really like it. It looks a bit filmy, I'd say. Okay, let's go back here and add some shadows into the shirt. Shirt shadows. Wonderful. Now we take again the brush tool, we take the black color, and we just start painting with 5% opacity, like so. Just make the shadows a bit stronger, like so. Paint away, paint away. I feel like a kid, like first grade, but that's fun though. It's really fun. And overlay, and 58% looks, yeah, I think it looks good. Now highlights. Show highlights. White. Same technique, same thing, nothing new here. We really don't need as much highlights as we need shadows on the shirt, so it's going to be really, really, really easy. And 50%. Yep, wonderful. I'm going to play a bit more with this one. Add some contrast. Maybe go deeper. Yep, this looks way better, in my opinion. And something about her face doesn't work for me, I think. Let's do this. Now let's go again with something brighter. Like so. Let's try it. Not sure about this. I actually like this one. Okay, and what are we going to do next? Let's see. Now this really, I got into this photograph without thinking too much about what I'm going to do. So it might be a really long video. But what we basically did was add highlight shadows, we did dodging and burning, we did some tone curves, and let's do some softening the skin and adding some sharpness. So I'm gonna do this. Nope, this was a bad idea. This was a really bad idea. Control J. Yeah, this is how it's done. Okay, wonderful. Now duplicate 3 times. Top layer we're going to do filter, blur, Gaussian blur, somewhere around 3.2. Yes, this is great. Take this layer out. This layer we're gonna put on hard light, filter, other, high pass, and I think the radius on this one should be, yeah, I think 1.8 would be great. 1.8 is awesome. Now we take this layer and we start deleting the areas that we don't want blurriness in. For example, the lips, and a bit around the lips, the nose, the eyes. We really don't want the eyes and the brow to be blurred, and some spots in the hair, like so. That's wonderful. And I think that's it, guys. This is really an intensive edit. I usually do intensive edits. I don't like the light editing most of the times. This is how the photo used to look. It was great by itself, in my opinion. And now I think we've added like a really different mood to the photo. It looks like as if it's like a cinematic feel, I'd say.